Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
We will keep kicking your ass every single day. Go for it, bitch. Come at me.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's Monday, it's start of a new week. I'm back. I'm feeling better than ever. So let's do it. We got plenty of stories here. We got a couple of them that I just been dying to do. The comical Taco Bell order. Come on, you're gonna love that because that's an inflation-related story. Hilarious. We have Charlie Kirk versus empathy, and I think that's very important too because they kind of give away the game. They give away what they really feel, how they feel, and the fact that they despise empathy. So, then we also have Arizona versus the 2000 Mules. So good. We have, it depends on if we have time for this. It's a really long segment about how maybe the election conspiracies didn't work out so well for Republicans when it came to elections. I know, bizarre, but we'll talk about that. And then finally, a story on eviction, which is going to drive you insane. It's an insane story. It will make your blood boil. You will be angry and amazed and perhaps driven into action. Interesting. So, that said, why don't we start out again by asking you all to first like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Again, helps me out greatly, helps the show. So please do that. And by the way, thank you for all the love. I know y'all miss me, so appreciate that. Missed you as well. Missed doing the show. Glad to be back. With that, dive in.
The new communication strategy is not to do what Bill Clinton used to do, where he would say, I feel your pain. Instead, it is to say, you're actually not in pain. So let's just, very short clip. Bill Clinton in the 1990s, it was all about empathy and sympathy. I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage, but it is very effective when it comes to politics. Sympathy I prefer more than empathy. That's a separate topic for a different time.
So that was Charlie Kirk saying that really doesn't like the term empathy. Oh, I don't like empathy. Okay, so why doesn't he like the term empathy? That's very interesting. It's weird. It's weird. I mean, who doesn't like empathy? I mean, okay, so I guess maybe to drill into this, why don't we define what empathy is? Which is the capacity to understand or feel what another person is experiencing from within their frame of reference, or the capacity to place oneself in another's position or in somebody else's shoes, basically. Now, is Charlie Kirk able to put himself into other people's shoes? Not unless he steals them first. I mean, that would be my guess, because knowing Charlie Kirk, he has no empathy. But that said, he prefers sympathy. Okay. So now, like, some people may use those terms, interchangeably. Maybe if they don't really know what either of them mean. But okay, all right. So now sympathy, that's defined as the feeling that you care about and are sorry about someone else's trouble, grief, misfortune, etc. All right. Now, again, the difference here between the two is that empathy creates a connection with somebody who is going through something terrible, suffering, right? Sympathy creates a barrier. It separates you from the person who is struggling. Empathy is our ability to understand how somebody feels, whereas sympathy is our relief in not having the same problems as another person. And that said, I'm not saying that there isn't an appropriate time for sympathy. Of course there is. There's also an important time for empathy as well. And when it comes to our political system, when it comes to policies that affect people's everyday life, you might want to stock up on a little bit more empathy instead of, "Ooh, I feel sorry for you, bro." Not really much I can do, though. I'm just glad I'm not dealing with what you're dealing with. Now, this is very important to keep in mind when you're dealing with Republicans. Because what I've noticed here from people like Charlie Kirk, from the Candace Owens of the world, right? From all these chuds, the Dennis Pragers, is that they generally do not put themselves in other people's shoes in order to understand their troubles. No. These people actually play a perpetual victimhood. So, like, oh my God, conservatives, we're being hunted down. It's the worst time for conservatives. White men, they're doing so badly. Why doesn't anybody care for the white man? Well, look, we do. I'm a white man. I care for white men, obviously. I also have empathy for everyone else. But what they don't have for anyone else is empathy, or even in a lot of cases, sympathy. But they sure love to empathize with the fellow white man. Now, here's the thing, though. The reason they don't have any empathy is because, well, if you have empathy for other people, you might actually want to help them. And that is the main issue. They don't want to help other people because it's going to hurt their donors. You think the donors to Turning Point USA really want to pay a little bit more in taxes to help people who are disadvantaged, to help people who are disenfranchised? No, they do not. In fact, they lobby, they spend millions of dollars to avoid helping out people who are in actual need. Helping is woke. It's the wokeness. And that's why it's bad for some reason. But look, now, here's the thing, though. Don't get it confused. I'm not saying conservatives aren't capable of empathy. Of course they are. But it's not empathy for people who are outside their own social groups, their own insular communities, right? And there's a word for that. It's tribalism, essentially. They don't want to empathize with other groups outside of their immediate family or tribal group. Now, again, we do see pretty often in situations where conservatives, this is a good example, who are anti-LGBTQ, right? I don't like gay people. Oh, it turns out one of their family members is gay. And sometimes where you see these people will change their tune and go, oh my God, now I care. Now I care about empathy. Now, look, Jon Stewart did a fantastic segment on the transgender community, right? It was last week. He interviewed people who grew up conservative. And they happen to have a transgender child. Now, one of these families actually did something that I think is great. They supported their kid. Now, there was a price to pay because now within that conservative community, that group, that family was no longer part of the group. It was the other. They were the other. Kick them out. So they lost all their friends. They lost, a lot of things because they decided to have the temerity to stand up for their children. Yeah. Now, they developed, by the way, empathy. And suddenly they find that they didn't really belong as a conservative anymore. Now, that's a good reason to say that Charlie Kirk hates empathy. Because when you become empathetic, it really becomes anathema to American Christian and conservative values, right? And I say Christian conservative, American, and I mean Christian nationalist values, because that's what the right wing is now. That's what the Republican Party stands for. Now, if you're a Christian and you consider yourself to be like a Republican, but you haven't been paying attention to what your party's doing, you might want to take a look, especially if you do actually have empathy for other people. Because if you look at that, you're going to realize, oh my God, these people are not at all what Christ taught, said we should be. A little bit of self-reflection might help. But anyway, it's this empathy is anathema to the modern conservative movement, because if you start understanding other groups of people and wanting to help all these other groups of people instead of fearing and hating them or pitying them, you might actually feel compelled to stand up for them on their behalf and help them. The lack of empathy, though, towards anybody who's not part of their in-group explains a lot. It's why they can simultaneously be incredibly charitable towards people in their own community, to give to their church, etc., while at the same time being incredibly vicious towards the unhoused, towards immigrants, towards members of the LGBTQIA+ community. There is that duality. I mean, we all know the story. Well, it's not really a story, but kind of like the example of the, person who goes to church all the time, thinks they're a good person, but every time they pass by a homeless person, they sneer. Get a job. Or when they say, oh, that's so immoral. Why doesn't she just cover up when it comes to somebody who is sexually harassed or assaulted? But then they go to church and they say, well, I'm a good person. I donate. I give to the church. What do you mean I'm a terrible person? That's exactly what we mean. You're terrible to people that are outside your group, that are different than you. And that matters. That matters a lot. Because, again, not to, come off like someone who is giving a sermon here, because I'm not even religious. I'm not even Christian, right? But it was one of those things where, yes, I've studied the Bible. I've read it, read a lot of it, read a lot of the teachings. Jesus Christ was a fan of people who were in the out group because he himself was a member of the out group. He was not part of the establishment. He was on the outside, whipping the bankers, chasing them out of the temple, hanging out with prostitutes. The Jesus of the Bible, kind of based. Whereas Charlie Kirk, not at all. So, yes, Charlie Kirk is also wrong, by the way, about this being some sort of new age thing. No, empathy has always existed in humankind. It's actually one of our strongest traits, that we can actually empathize with each other. It's how you can build diverse nations and advance things like social justice, rights for everybody. That's two things that right now the right wing in this country do not believe in, do not want. So it's no surprise that Kirk feels absolutely no empathy, because if he did, he wouldn't be a right winger. I have no empathy. Kirk has a large melon head with a tiny face, says Grumpy Cat. No empathy for people like Charlie Kirk. Let's just say that, huh?
Sexual anarchy.
All right. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to talking about tacos. Let's taco about it. I know, I'm the worst. I'm freaking terrible.
You want to know how bad inflation is? Yesterday, yes, I had a nice lunch at Taco Bell. Cost me about $28 at Taco Bell for lunch. People need to pay for those things, and they do that by getting jobs and getting in the economy and getting active and getting involved.
Wait a minute. You spent $28 at Taco Bell for just yourself?
For lunch, yeah, it's true.
Okay.
That's a lot of chalupas.
That's an inflation story.
That is. You're both thin, fit guy. I can't see it. Me, that's just like the opening appetizer, but whatever.
Wow. That was Fox business contributor Scott Martin, the chief investment officer of a wealth management company, attempting to talk about inflation, but instead finding himself the center of mockery over tacos, of all things. I like tacos. Now, Media Matters, Eric Kleefield posted this from last week's edition of Neo Kavuta's show, and of course it went viral at the time. I still wanted to talk about it because it's hilarious. People were trying to figure out how the hell this guy racked up a $28 bill at Taco Bell. Look, I'm no stranger to Taco Bell. All right, I like tacos. And it's very difficult to rack up that much money on just yourself. Just yourself. So look, I've had orders for two people that didn't come out to $28. And I think a lot of people shared a similar sentiment. Or, before you think that this is kind of a nonsense story, sure it is. But there's also a lesson buried in here, especially about people who claim to be so-called titans of money management, not being very good with their money. So let me show you. This is what he claimed his order was, and this was after the fact. So it wasn't an actual receipt. Here's that. So he shared this screenshot on Twitter, where he just threw a bunch of stuff together and said, "This is how much I spent." He didn't even spend $28, $25.40. And look how much food that is. I mean, nachos Bel Grande? That's a meal. Get the Baja Blasts. It's a freeze. Burrito Supreme. All right, so that's a pretty decent amount of food, right? If you were not full by that, there's something wrong with you. It's definitely more than what I can eat in the sitting. And I admit I'm a little chunky. I like my tacos. I love Taco Bell, but it just makes me wonder if this guy hadn't just smoked a giant bowl before going to the fast food restaurant. You know what I'm saying? Before the drive-thru. He had to have. But secondly, most importantly, did he not know how to get a combo box? Those are cheap. Everyone who's been to Taco Bell knows you can easily save money by ordering things in combos. But this guy does not go to Taco Bell. Now, as one person on Twitter points out, you can get a combo meal that includes a drink and a taco. It would knock $5 off your tab. What kind of financial expert are you? It's a good question. Also, they know, I advise you to go to the hospital immediately since you consumed 2,000 plus calories and a lifetime supply of sodium and fat during lunch. Yeah, that's just his lunch. By the way, nobody's going to want to be near him, when that hits. Modern Trailhead says, so by choice, you ordered an obscene amount of food that wasn't at all discounted by choosing a combo and added guac and jalapenos. An order that pricey takes effort. It didn't just happen to you. Neither did what happened after you ate it. Did that to yourself too.
They call them dumps, big, massive dumps.
All right. Then you, of course, had experts weigh in. Ian Milheiser says, for the record, $28 at Taco Bell will get you 4 crunchy tacos, 3 chalupas, 2 Crunchwrap Supreme, and unlimited refills of Mountain Dew Baja Blast. Look, even Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez decided to wade into this taco controversy. Well, if someone is talking politics and eating $28 worth of Taco Bell in one sitting, then my immediate follow-up question is what their thoughts are on Biden's executive order on cannabis rescheduling. I would love to hear that. All right, more fun responses. J6 says $28 to Taco Bell could kill a horse. Another person says if you eat $28 of Taco Bell, you hate your colon. It's true. It's true.
People are flushing toilets 10 times, 15 times.
Another person says, to be fair, eating $28 of Taco Bell for lunch is a certain kind of inflation. So now with that, again, those are the fun comments. Let me just make the serious point here. And it's about inflation. Now, he told this ridiculous story so that he could, actually do a message about inflation. Now, that actually is effective because what Republicans are doing is they are hammering Biden on inflation. Now, inflation is a real thing. It is hurting millions of people in this country. Is it Joe Biden's fault? No. It's COVID. It's leftover from the pandemic. It's supply chain issues. And a lot of it's corporate greed, corporate price gouging. Now, if you want to blame Biden for something, blame him for not tamping down on that enough, not being aggressive enough at corporations who are ripping off regular people. That said, right, Republicans are making a message for the midterms about the economy. Where are the Democrats on that? Democrats, you might want to actually also make a counter argument for progressive economic policies. Make it about the economy, and you would actually win people over because it turns out, yes, progressive ideas are better for the economy than Republican ideas because Republicans, all they want to do is give tax cuts to rich people and corporations and deregulate. That's it. That's it. That's their plan. That's their plan. As I said before, this is greed. This is, a lot of this inflation is greed, exasperated by the very hedge funders that you see out there pretending. Exacerbated. That's a hard word. By these very same hedge funders that go out there and try to pretend to be a regular person. They're not regular people. They're not average people. Average people know how to save money because we have no choice. We don't make enough money. Our jobs are not based on gambling with other people's money on the stock market or the retirement specifically, using algorithmically based transactions. If this guy really were an average person suffering from the effects of inflation, he could have had plenty of other good examples. Just going up and filling up your car, going to the grocery store. But then, you would actually have to address the fact that, profit margins for a lot of these same companies are actually way up. Way up. We can't go there because, again, that's partly his industry's doing and other industries doing, and the fact that he is just not an average person. He's not one of us, and he illustrated that perfectly. All right. So let's go to the serious stories. Go to a little, election fraud stuff. Yeah, stuff. I know words. I have the best words. The greatest words. All right. The state of Arizona is now asking federal investigators to look into the group behind the conspiracy theory film 2000 Mules, the Dinesh D'Souza True the Vote film. So now this comes after Republican candidates for several top statewide offices have voiced support for these election conspiracies. The allegations made in that movie about the mules and the drop boxes and all the stuff. So now Republicans like Carrie Lake, Mark Fincham, and Abe Hamada, the Republican candidate for state attorney general. Now, those people, again, are making wacky, allegations about this. As a result, Arizona, at least the current state attorney general's office, is asking the FBI and IRS for an investigation of the group behind that movie. That is True the Vote. Now, that group A little history. They claim to care about election integrity. Of course, in reality, they're about trying to disenfranchise non-Republican voters by getting the government to pass voter suppression laws. They also do voter intimidation by trying to act as poll workers in minority areas. And of course, while they've always been into conspiracies like voter fraud, again, I've been hearing about that for so long. Since 2020, I mean, their rhetoric has amped up. And they have claimed that they have proof that the entire presidential election was rigged against Trump. And somehow, they gave the election to Joe Biden. Now, they also claim to have lots and lots of proof. But when it comes time to, present the proof, they don't want to do it. They don't want to give it. Oh, you want the proof? We left it in our other car. Look, my dog ate it, but I will get you a new copy of the proof. Okay, I just got to go home and I got to print it. Okay. No, they don't have the proof. Now, this group is no exception, by the way. Arizona's Attorney General claims the group has repeatedly rebuffed all of the requests to share the documentary's alleged evidence, and at the same time has raised considerable amounts of money based on the claims of having that evidence. It's a lot like Mike Pillow. Mike Pillow, I've got evidence. I've got so much evidence, but you can't see it. Now forget about the evidence. Well, then why do you make a big point about the evidence if you actually don't want to present it? And again, this also goes back to all the numerous challenges right after the 2020 election by Trump's legal team, who would not present any evidence. In fact, they didn't even make the claims in official court filings that there was voter fraud. Because when you're in front of a judge, when you're arguing in court, you can't present things that you have zero evidence of. So, now, that said, let me get to the a quote here. This is Reginald Grigsby, Chief Special Agent of the Office's Special Investigation Section. This is, again, part of the Arizona Office of the Attorney General. Quote, given True the Vote status as a nonprofit organization, it would appear that further review of its financials may be warranted. Central to the film are claims that mobile phone data obtained by the group shows a coordinated effort by hundreds of people around the country deemed Mules to stuff election drop boxes with fraudulent ballots for candidate Joe Biden in 2020. Now, that cell phone data proves nothing. Just by itself, it shows that people were walking near election drop boxes. Well, that doesn't prove anything. Drop boxes that are put in some very accessible, very public areas, I don't know what that's supposed to prove. That's not supposed to prove anything. Now, they say, we've got the data. Well, where is it? Where is the data? Well, according to the AG's office, the group has refused to release any of their data to law enforcement, even after promising to do so. Again, they don't have it. They do not have it at all. Grigsby letter also accuses True the Vote founder Catherine Engelbrecht and its contractor Greg Phillips of providing misleading information to his office and other law enforcement groups. He also mentions some of the other insane claims that they're being made. Like, for example, they claimed that they helped solve a murder. Well, yeah, we just solved a murder with our cell phone data. No, you didn't. They also, by the way, claimed, they claimed that they broke a ballot harvesting case in San Luis, Arizona. So now that actually did happen, and I'm going to get to the details of that. But they didn't break that case. No, that was a case that was already ongoing. So we'll get into that. That said, the most important allegation here against True the Vote is the fact that the possibility that they're just been using this voter fraud argument to raise money. Arizona is saying, we think you might be grifting. No, grifting? No. No, it's what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
I'm not worth your McDonald's money.
Okay. But anyway, so now in sum, the letter states from the attorneys general, the information points to potential violations of tax code given True the Vote's 501c3 nonprofit status. So, in summary, they say they have evidence, they don't have it. They say they're planning to give it over. They can't give over anything that you don't have. And even back in May, said that they had handed over some evidence, a disc, which they actually didn't. As the Republic reported last month, records obtained from, this is the Arizona Republic, from the Attorney General's office show that officials tried repeatedly to obtain the alleged findings, the disc, but True the Vote never followed through. Oh, it must have got lost in the mail, right? Oh, that's it. It got you know what? It got intercepted by the deep state. That's what it is. That's what happens.
We're under attack. It is an alien force, not of this world.
I don't know. They're going to come up with some conspiracy because guess what? They are a conspiracy group. That's what they do. They just come up with insane things and they pass it off as truth. And unfortunately, there are so many people out there that just believe it. Now, Grigsby also said that Phillips' claim that he turned over the findings was patently false. True the Vote representatives subsequently told the Attorney General's office that it turned over its findings to the Phoenix FBI office, and that since the FBI now considered the conservative activists informants, they didn't think that they could give the state the same information. That wasn't true either, according to Grigsby. Oh, so we're FBI informants now, so we can't share you the information. And the FBI says, no, that's not true at all. That's ridiculous. In fact, Phoenix FBI officials told state investigators that the representatives were not informants and that they had only turned over an audio and video recording of someone alleging ballot harvesting in San Luis. So now the group also told another unnamed law enforcement agency that had turned over its findings to the state attorney general's office. Again, lie after lie after lie. So let me give you the one thing here that is actually true, and that's in San Luis. Actually, there was a case of ballot harvesting. So let me give you the details on that. So now, the small town's former mayor was sentenced to 30 days in jail for collecting 4 ballots that were not hers and depositing them in a box. 4 ballots. 4 votes. Everybody, oh, that's going to make the real difference. Oh, look at that massive voter fraud. It's got 4 votes. Ridiculous. By the way, up until 2016, ballot harvesting was legal. It was made illegal by insane right-wingers in that state. And again, this is the only state prosecution involving ballot harvesting that they have seen. Was this really that big of a problem? No, it wasn't. Now, that person who got 30 days in jail was a 66-year-old grandma who helped her community. Now, she also, again, was a former mayor. Okay, she's a Democrat, though. Oh, yeah, Democrat. Now, character witnesses of hers, said that she had spent her life helping others while raising her children, caring for her aging mother, and building a business. They also said that sentencing her to prison because, again, the Republicans were calling for a year in prison for her for turning in 4 ballots. Character witnesses said that sending her to prison would hurt the community and serve absolutely no purpose. Well, the purpose for right-wingers for calling for that is cruelty. They want to be unusually cruel and take away somebody's freedom and liberty. This is the Freedom and Liberty Party. They want to send her to prison for dropping off 4 lawfully voted, signature verified ballots to a drop box. They accused her of some sort of conspiracy using her power and influence to try to, swing an election. No, she turned in 4 ballots. That's it. This is insane. Look, Voter fraud, not a real issue. Ballot harvesting, again, not a real issue. No, the real fraud here, the real fraud is the fact that you have this group out there that can terrorize their fellow Americans so that they can't vote. No, it's not about, and it's never been about, securing elections. Never. It's always about one side attempting to maintain or gain power. In this case, it's the right wing. All right. Speaking of election conspiracies, move on to the next story. According to a recent study, Republican voter fraud conspiracy theories might have actually done more harm to the GOP than good. And now we're specifically talking about the Georgia election, special election runoff. So now, new research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences provides some evidence that voters in Georgia who embraced Donald Trump's claims of widespread election fraud were less likely to cast their ballot in a pivotal runoff election. Wow, surprising, but not really. Gee, wasn't it me and, well, a lot of people, to be fair, tons of people were saying, hey, you know, if you keep talking about how the elections are rigged, the voting process is rigged, and your vote's never going to count, it's not going to matter, that's going to make people not want to vote because they think, what's the point? Yeah. And it turns out that some people didn't vote for that same reason, or allegedly. Again, there's a little bit of nuance here, but we'll get to more of the information. So now, following the 2020 election, of course, as you know, we all know Donald Trump cried endlessly about voter fraud. The voter fraud is the fraud. The election was stolen from me. The 2,000 mules, the drop boxes, you got illegals that are voting. Now, all of that was debunked by people who ran elections, study elections, know elections, who have analyzed these elections, even judges that were appointed by Donald Trump himself, confirmed by Republicans in the Senate, these judges, and they're like, yeah, no, we don't have any evidence. We don't see any evidence of this. And now, but of course, a lot of the right thumbs their nose at knowledge, thumbs their nose at facts and so-called experts, and instead embrace nonsense conspiracy theories like the 2,000 mules, right? Now, it turns out that that may have, again, made losing that election a self-fulfilling prophecy. Study author John Green, a senior research scientist in the Networks Science Institute at Northeastern University, and a fellow at the Shorenstein Center on Media, Politics, and Public Policy at Harvard, wrote this. Trends in U.S. politics are such that Democratic and Republican politicians are both vocally suspicious of their opponents' respect for the rules of the game in our democracy. To be fair, these suspicions come with very different levels of empirical support. These conspiracy theories about widespread voter fraud on the part of Democrats really are baseless. So, look, what they're saying, they're putting it in a super nice way that, yeah, both sides are like, hey, you know, I don't think the other side's playing fair. And you can definitely point at Republicans and make a really, really strong case, right? But they also point out that, yeah, the things that Republicans are saying, the Democrats are doing, completely and utterly baseless. There's just absolutely no evidence of that. Shutting it down, and again, the most polite way possible. Now, gerrymandering, for example, just to go through the ways that Democrats are correct in their rhetoric that Republicans do want to, restrict who votes. Gerrymandering's real, and by the way, that is used on both sides. Voter suppression in the form of closing polling places, that's real. Voter purges that are just random and not based on things like Okay, so the voter purges, there's a system, interstate cross-check, that basically takes names that are similar and rejects them, even if it's not the same person. And so those people get, deregistered, tossed out, purged from the voter rolls. When they go to vote, they find out that they're no longer registered and actually can't cast a ballot. Greg Palast has done a lot of work on that. And so that's an example of, voter suppression, right? That's real. Now, this guy might be arguing that you could, okay, you just look at the rhetoric, right? You look at the rhetoric from the left, about, these issues, voter suppression, etc. And yeah, you'll find some empirical data, right? You'll find it's more backed up by evidence. But when you look at the right wing, they're not backed up at all by evidence. That said, is it just Republicans that do voter suppression? Not entirely. Not entirely. But understand this in a little bit of a different way. And so I'm not even sure what the correct term is for what I'm about to explain. But we all remember the DNC primaries. Okay? Now, I'm a firm believer that the Democratic Party absolutely tried to undermine Bernie Sanders' campaign. Of course. Of course. Did they do so by fraud or illegal means? No. I don't believe that at all. So, I remember there's a lot of people on the left that were like, they rigged the primaries against Bernie Sanders. Well, what do you mean by rig, right? If you mean they put their thumb in the scale for Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden in 2020, then absolutely. Yes, they put their thumb in the scale. Is that illegal? No. So now, did Sanders have a significant disadvantage in media coverage? Absolutely. That was one of the ways that they did absolutely put their thumb on the scale for the establishment candidate. Was there evidence of media collusion? Absolutely. Remember Donna Brazile giving debate questions to Bernie Sanders, sharing them before the debate. To Clinton and not Bernie Sanders before debate. Now, I'm not saying that debate question is determinative, but it just shows how it's still wrong and there was bias and there was favor. What was far more determinative, though, is mainstream media, by and large, treating the Bernie Sanders campaign incredibly negatively, having an incredible bias against him. Studies from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, for example, showed the Washington Post was the most egregious offender of that, putting out negative articles about Sanders just on a consistent basis. Everybody remembers this, right? And let me get to that. This is the 15 of the 16 negative articles written about Bernie Sanders in a 16-hour time period. I look at all those. Yeah, that's a lot of negativity in one day. Now, Fair also found the Post's fact-checking team had consistently misinterpreted Sanders' statements to award him multiple Pinocchios. Claimed that he was lying. And even posted a headline, Bernie Sanders keeps saying his average donation is $27, but his own numbers contradict that, meaning that Bernie Sanders is a dirty liar. You know what his average donation is? $27.89. That's it. Yeah. $27.89. So, they could look at, technically he's lying about it being $27. Yeah, it's $27.89. Ridiculous. Now, I use this example because it really does show how there's evidence that Democrats have absolutely used ways to try to discourage progressives from voting for particular candidates in primaries. I remember talking about New York City's registration deadlines, how you had to register a year out from a primary to be involved. And there's numerous other examples of establishment Democrats trying to shut down the more progressive wing of the party. So those things are absolutely real. That said, the Democrats, while they do this in their own primaries, which are private, do they do this in general elections? No. But Republicans, they do absolutely do voter suppression. So, look, in fact, a lot of the people, okay, so a lot of the people that voted for Bernie Sanders, and let me just note this. They've been blamed. We've been blamed for not showing up in general elections, right? Even though most of us did. 88% of Sanders' primary voters in 2016 voted for Hillary Clinton. 12% of them went for Trump. Now, you might think, oh my God, 12% of Bernie Sanders supporters went for Trump? Yeah, well, when Hillary Clinton lost the primary to Barack Obama, 24% of her supporters went for John McCain on the Puma platform. What's the Puma platform? Party Unity my ass. Remember that. By the way, fun fact, the Washington Post went back during that time period, and what kind of attacks did they lob against voters for Obama? The same kind of attacks. Oh, they're sexist Obama boys. It's the same playbook they used during the 2016 election to smear their opponents, supporters of their opponents, as terrible people, as sexists, as misogynists. You get the picture. So, that said, I think that does matter. Back to the study, though. Green notes that there are debates within the parties about whether this kind of rhetoric, the rhetoric of, oh, it's not going to matter, it's rigged, everything's against you, etc., is counterproductive. Quote, people who work in Democratic politics, for instance, are sometimes worried that Democrats' allegations that Republicans are engaging in voter suppression could discourage potential Democratic voters from voting on the margins because it could create the impression that voting will be more difficult or inconvenient. But that's the thing. It is difficult and more convenient. It's not an argument they're making. It is. If you look at some of these lines in heavily minority areas, in these polling places, people waiting for 6 to 8 hours in order to cast their ballot, yeah, that is a problem. That is a huge problem. That is difficult and inconvenient. But when it comes to Republicans and their wacky conspiracies, apparently you're seeing the same thing. During the Georgia runoffs, we saw local Republican activists raising similar concerns about fraud allegations, that they were discouraging Republican voters from turning out because they were introducing uncertainty into whether voting was going to have any relationship with the runoff's outcome. So the question of whether there is any behavioral implications of this kind of elite rhetoric was what sparked my initial interest in the specific research question. That question, of course, was answered partly by the fact that they had analyzed Twitter data and voter records to explore the link between the endorsement of Trump's election fraud claims and voter turnout in Georgia's 2021 runoff elections. That sample included 45,431 Twitter users who had a voter record in the state of Georgia. The study authors evaluated whether Twitter users had liked or retweeted content supporting or detracting from election fraud conspiracy theories. They also evaluated whether the users had liked or retweeted posts by the official Twitter account of then President Donald Trump, and whether they had engaged with other prominent accounts that posted content supporting or opposing election fraud conspiracies. Green and his colleagues found that online engagement with content detracting from election fraud conspiracy theories was associated with higher turnout than expected in the runoff election. On the other hand, those who liked or shared tweets supporting fraud-related conspiracy theories were slightly less likely to vote. Now, again, there's a caveat to this. Obviously, there's some issues with the methodology, and they explain that. In fact, Green writes, we can't say for sure whether the big lie cost Republicans control of the Senate, but our study provides some evidence that it didn't help their candidates in the Georgia runoffs. All of our findings surprised us in the sense that there was good reasons to expect different results, and we really weren't sure what we'd find until we analyzed the data. The researcher proposed several other different mechanisms by which widespread claims of election fraud could affect turnout. They had theorized, for instance, that engagement with the 2020 election conspiracy theories on Twitter could possibly help boost Republican voter turnout due to their potential to elicit anger and strengthen partisan ties. Now, anger, of course, is a big driver of algorithms and a huge part of conservative politics. There are two things that conservatives feel very greatly, and that is disgust, which is number one, anger, which is what, again, a lot of right-wingers use to galvanize their base. That's why you always hear about a new, for example, something that transgender people did somehow, or, immigrant caravan. Here comes the migrants. Fear, they're dirty migrants. Oh, it's the disgust and the fear. So that's what they'd use. Green explained that it was reasonable to expect that endorsing election conspiracy theories would have been associated with higher turnout in the runoffs because the conspiracy theory made people angry, and prior work has linked anger to things like party loyalty and intentions to vote. So if he had observed that positive relationship, it would have made sense. However, translating anger into action typically requires it to be paired with efficacy, a belief that you can do something to address the threat you perceive. Here, a central premise of the conspiracy theory that election results in Georgia are not directly based on the votes that citizens cast likely reduces efficacy, so the results we found also make sense. Another proposed mechanism was negative evaluations of co-partisan candidates, basically rhinos. Look, Republicans, right-wingers like Marjorie Greene, or Greitens, or Greitens, or Cretans, whatever, they constantly talk about hunting the rhinos. We got to go after the rhino Republicans in our party, and Donald Trump too. We got to go after the people who are not conservative enough, not Republican enough. And so, look, does that filter down? Absolutely. And so you could definitely make a case, as Green is, that, yeah, maybe some of these voters just did not see their candidates as conservative enough, as pro-Trump enough. They're rhinos. So now, he said, it's also possible the way the Republican candidates campaign turned these voters off. The election, this election determined control of the Senate when Democrats had already won control of the House and presidency. If you're a Republican running for Senate in that situation, you typically want to appeal to the small but non-trivial slice of the electorate that sincerely prefers divided government. You want to pitch yourself as the last check against a Democratic trifecta. But if you say that this is a Republican candidate in the Georgia runoffs, you are implicitly acknowledging that Joe Biden is going to be the president. That is, you're behaving as if the election was not stolen. If you're really invested in the idea that the election was stolen and we need to do everything in our power to correct this obvious injustice, then why bother turning out to vote for a candidate like that? Again, we don't know if that's what drove our finding. We just can't rule it out. Fascinating. It kind of really shows how human activity is really unpredictable. And no matter how much you try to quantify it or chart it out, you just never really know until it happens. But that said, this report is in line with some of the others where, talked about how Republicans, some of them, decided to boycott elections because what's the point? Why does it matter? It's stolen by the Democrats anyway. Green says, we can't nail down why we see the relationships we see, and we can't completely rule out that the turnout behavior is being driven by something other than the conspiracy theory. I mean, maybe people were tired of COVID, that Donald Trump had messed up. Or it could be just the fact that a lot of Republicans died as a result of COVID because they chose not to mask. They chose not to get vaccines. They chose to be completely unsafe, to go out to Applebee's, and demand for the lockdowns to be ended. Another factor that could explain this is less Republicans around now. But I do think the voter fraud claims are a huge part of this. He added, finally, I think it's really important to keep in mind that conspiracy theories undermining faith in elections outcomes are bad, regardless of any relationships they might have had with voting behavior in the short term. Well, I can't really disagree. So I guess Republicans, if you want to keep talking about, how the elections are rigged and then not turn out, who might argue? All right. One last story here. A city ordinance in Illinois is forcing landlords to evict tenants for crimes they didn't commit. So, let me give you some details in this because this is absolutely infuriating. See, it turns out, according to the city ordinance, you can be evicted for the crimes of a family member who doesn't even live in your home. This is, again, in the Daily Beast, they write a story and they reference a person that has had this happen to them or is in the process of having this happen to them. Her name is Debbie Brummett, and she lives with her partner, Andy Simpson, and 2 of her grandchildren, then a toddler and a baby when this happened. They were given an eviction notice because her daughter, who did not live with her, was arrested and charged in the city for grand theft auto for stealing a van. On June 9th, 2019, a van was stolen from a lot in Granite City, Illinois. The 2 suspects were arrested and charged. But just days after that arrest, after she had stolen the van, Debbie and her landlord received a letter from the Granite City Police Department, regardless of the landlord's preferences. By the way, in this case, I know I like to bag on landlords a lot, but in this case, the landlord's like, no, I like my tenants. Why would I want them to go? They're good people. They're good tenants. I don't want to kick them out. But the city said, no, you don't have a choice. You have to kick them out because we have this anti-crime law. So this police officer or the police in that city said that Debbie and Andy had to be evicted because of their association with someone who had broken the law. Again, nobody in that household was involved in the theft. Not even the baby. No, sometimes you can't trust those. Can't trust them babies. Gotta keep your eye on them at all times. But it didn't matter though. Granite City, they said, no, you gotta go. You take your family, get out. I don't care what the landlord says. I don't care if the landlord wants to keep you. Get out. Get out. Again, this is the crime-free housing ordinance that was passed in Granite City. Under that, police are routinely being forced to, forcing private landlords to evict entire families if any household member or even a guest of your home committed a felony anywhere in city limits. In Debbie's case, her daughter was visiting. The daughter had been in town for a weekend only because Debbie had checked her into a hospital to get treatment for substance abuse. So obviously she had some issues. So this mother did, I think, what any good mother would do. Hey, you need help. So I'm going to check you into the hospital. We're going to get you kicked, off them drugs. We're going to get you off whatever you're on, right? We're going to get you sober and clean, and I will help you out. You can stay with us for the weekend till you get, checked in. That family member, unfortunately, goes out and does something illegal without her knowledge and commits a crime. And guess what? These people who tried to help their family, help their daughter, they pay the price. They pay the price. And that is super messed up. But it gets worse. Other examples. In 2019, the city had ordered an entire family's eviction because one household member kicked an officer in the shin at a church picnic. I kid you not. Oh, you're going to kick an officer in the shin. Not only are you going to jail, but your entire family is going to get evicted from their home. Wow. The city also ordered another household's eviction because one member shoplifted from the Walmart, the local Walmart, Another case started when the household member drove drunk. Again, crimes. What does the family have to do with it? Why are they losing their home? Police even ordered a woman's eviction because her child's father was caught with drugs, not in the home, but he often cared for their son at her home. So he would come and babysit, but he got busted somewhere else with drugs. Doesn't matter. Oh, you go to that home to babysit your kid? Looks like they got to lose their home too. Look, it may not seem like much, but between 2014 and 2019, Granite City, it's not a big city, issued more than 300 compulsory eviction orders against families living within its borders. And again, many of them were based on crimes that did not occur at the homes targeted for evictions. But it doesn't matter. It's guilt by association. This law is incredibly draconian and is destroying these homes, these families, these communities. I mean, once you get kicked out, where are you supposed to go? I mean, like, what can you do? Especially if you're low income. Hotel? You're going to go to stay at the hotel? You're going to stay at the motel? Well, that's expensive. We're going to keep your stuff. Can't take that to the hotel, can you? No, you got to take it to storage. Store it somewhere else. Storage is also expensive. You don't know. Maybe it gets stolen somewhere. I mean, what are you supposed to do? You're leaving people without any options. Any options at all. Yet Granite City is defending this draconian law, this ordinance. That is, I don't even see how it's supposed to stop crime. All it does is punish the families of people, yes, who did do a crime. You're not stopping anyone else from doing crime. You're just harmless. You're just harming people for no goddamn reason. No goddamn reason. Now, last month, the judge in Debbie and Andy's case, ruled against him in the fact that compulsory eviction regimes like the one in Granite City are totally fine and totally legal. Yeah, we'll just keep it. Yeah, no, it's totally fine. Yes, kick out their families. Kick out their families. Now, Debbie and Andy, so far, they're still in their home. They were allowed a temporary restraining order against Granite City in federal court. And in the months that follows, the city did modify its law. The most outlandish features were stripped out. That said, it's still there. In fact, the guilt by association part of the law is still there and was defended as a valid tool of crime deterrence and prevention. The court also noted that a law mandating family-wide evictions was obviously striking in its breadth and reach, but said that curtailing collective punishment was no business of the federal court. Well, then what's the point? Again, the courts are there to interpret the law and to hand down sentencing and stuff like that. Isn't that one of the points of the courts to, but no, apparently they want to continue to have police kicking the people out of their homes. That's what they want. By the way, again, I rag on landlords, but actually some of them are like, no, we actually don't want to kick people out. We don't want to have people, be forced out. No, we got our rent money. We're happy. Okay. You're still going to kick them out anyway for something that they did. That's something that a family member had done. The whole thing is ridiculous. And again, as you're probably not going to be surprised by the next fact, people that are most affected, who are they? Members of low-income Black and Hispanic communities. Because, of course, since 2019, the U.S. Department of Justice has been suing one of the cities, Hesperia, California, over one of their crime-free housing laws that the DOJ maintains was racially discriminatory in both intent and effect. In June 2022, Faribault, Minnesota, also paid a $685,000 settlement in a lawsuit challenging racially based enforcement of its crime-free housing program. But despite the court challenges, these types of laws according to the Daily Beast, remain pervasive. DeKalb, Illinois, poised to convert its 3 strikes policy into a 1 strike regime, a lot like this. And in Sunbury, Pennsylvania, officials recently pledged to revive a law making it illegal for people to rent in the city if they've been convicted of a felony drug crime. Even if you're sober, doesn't matter. Even if you paid your time and you went through and you got clean and you want to rent in the city, can't do it. Can't do it at all. Nope. It's ridiculous. And overall, dozens of towns and cities retain these crime-free housing ordinances from Illinois to Minnesota to California, which are, again, discriminatory, and they punish entire families for crimes that maybe a family member had committed. The entire family. It's ridiculous. It's disgusting. And it's overly punitive. So, look, if you care about this issue, please amplify the video. And amplify these stories and stories like this. And look to see if you have an ordinance like that in your town or in your area. Look to see if it's on the books. And if so, get together with activists, people who care about social justice, and try to get these laws struck down in your community if they exist. Because, again, these are overly punitive and do not reduce the amount of crime in these areas. You're just hurting these people, hurting these families, for just absolutely no reason. Okay. With that said, that's all I got. Send the story to Dr. Ritchie. Yeah, maybe I could. He's got a huge platform. He can definitely signal boost it a lot more than myself. So that's a great idea. Let's see. Let me do Twitch super chats here. All right. Go. Boru, thank you for the very kind $2. Puns will never die in the Waldorf. Very, very true. What if the family owns a property, says Therese Snyder. Sorry if I your name there. You know what? There are stories that I've done, and I can't remember the term that they used. But yes, there have been stories of people's houses being seized by police in related to, for example, drug crimes, right? If somebody, for example, like a son had smoked, marijuana, cannabis, or something like that, did some sort of drug, maybe in the house, or had, come home and been in the house while high, these people still could have their homes and assets taken from them by police. So we have seen these stories before. And again, I can't seem to remember the term for that right now. I'm drawing a blank. Asset. Thank you, Red Hobbit. It's civil asset forfeiture, and that is something that has been a real issue as well. So, yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for asking that. Did I see the local dog dies from rabid Congresswoman backstory? I did not. All right. Let's go to Twitch here. Matt, thank you for resubbing for a month of tier 1. Appreciate that for 10 months. Awesome. Toolman Tim 51, thank you for resubbing with Prime 14 months. Hello, Jeff. Can't think of a better place for my Bezos bug. Appreciate that. And again, if you want to be like Toolman Tim, and got a Prime account, you can sub for free. Civil asset for future. Did I see Kanye buying Parler? Oh, Meg. I did. Ugh. Everything Kanye does, I generally don't care. Gross. All right. Anyway, thank you all for going around the nation with me today. Please, again, like and share the stream. Helpful. How's my Blue Apron card? I haven't had the chance to use it, actually. I'm going to get to, to get my wife. We're going to sit down together, and basically she's going to pick out everything. But I think we're going to enjoy it. So we just got to actually sit down and do it. But, thank you for asking. It is, it's pretty awesome to have an awesome gift. All right. Anyway, that's it. Love you all. Have a great day. And remember, change. You. Good night, nation. See y'all later.
Who's got a hammer?
Oh, man, I'm sorry. Please clap.
We'll do it live!
Oh yeah.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
People are flushing toilets 10 times, 15 times.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.
Obama.